Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen podcast by Eastmans. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Hey guys, while I got you here, make sure you're checking out, or I would highly encourage you to check out the entire suite of Eastman's YouTube content. That includes Eastman's Hunting TV on YouTube. Beyond the Grid is on YouTube. You can also find all of the Wingmen content, obviously, on YouTube, and all of our podcasts. Holy smokes, we have a massive suite of podcasts out there. So we have Eastman's Journal podcast, which is hosted by Ike Eastman. We have Eastman's Elevated, hosted by Brian Barney. We have Eastman's Life of a Bow Hunter, co-hosted by Brian Barney and Dan Picard. That's a tag team one. They talk about all things bow hunting. We have my favorite podcast, the Wingmen podcast, hosted by yours truly, Todd Helms. We have Eastman's Predator Pros, and we have the Western Huntsman podcast, hosted by Jim Huntsman. You can find all those podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find all of our gear reviews across all of our properties that we do on YouTube. Those are Wingmen gear reviews, Eastman's Hunting TV gear reviews, and I'm trying to remember what I left out, guys. But my point is, there is a plethora of information and content out there on YouTube for you to check out and enjoy. This episode of the Wingmen podcast is brought to you by Leupold Optics. You know, guys, obviously there's a handful of things that I rely upon heavily for Wingmen. One being performance eyewear, and Leupold has crushed that category. I thought I knew what good eyewear was, what good sunglasses were. Man, I was wrong. Performance eyewear from Leupold has taken that to the next level for me. Another thing is binoculars. I have to have high-quality binoculars for scouting, for finding birds, and Leupolds bring me all of the qualities that I need in a pair of binoculars. They also make killer everything, as you guys know. So check out Leupold, and thank you for listening to today's podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Wingmen podcast. And today I got a special guest. I got my dad on the podcast. It's almost Thanksgiving. Dad's been out here for a couple weeks, and we've got quite a bit to talk about. We've got some good hunting in.
Yes, we have. Nice pheasant hunt, some ducks, and just good time all around.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we jump into that, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors and partners that make this podcast and everything that we do here at Wingmen possible. As you guys know, we shoot Weatherby shotguns. We love them. We shot Weatherby shotguns on, I shot a Weatherby shotgun on the pheasant hunt we shot Weatherby shotguns last weekend on a duck hunt. They always perform flawlessly. They work really well. They fit both of us really well. Dad shot exceptionally well on the duck hunt. So yeah, thank you to Weatherby for making a great gun that we can actually get behind and I can endorse with no qualms. And shooting federal ammunition, it never fails. You know, you pull the trigger, bang, stuff dies if you hit it. It's great ammo. You can get it anywhere. You know, all the different stuff from the TSS loads down to to Black Cloud all the way down to the Speed Shock, the blue box stuff. I know a lot of guys swear by the Speed Shock, the blue box, and myself included. It's great, great ammunition. I was running Prairie Storm on our pheasant hunt, and yeah, it always just smokes birds. In fact, if you shoot too quick, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kryptek, always keeping us warm and dry and in the field for as long as we want to be. Awesome clothes, awesome camo, keeps us hidden out there. High Mountain Seasonings makes all those birds into delicious meals, and I can't thank those guys down in Riverton, Wyoming enough for that. And Leupold Optics, you know, I tried out the new Twilight Max lenses this weekend. I've worn them a little bit, but I haven't had a lot of time in the field with them, but I wore them Friday morning on our duck hunt. And these guys, Dad and Josh Lancaster from Red Flats Retrievers, who was handling dogs that day, were teasing me for wearing sunglasses on that hunt because it was still pretty early in the morning, and I handed them the Twilight Max lens, and they both were like, holy smokes. Yeah, so it's not only does it help protect my eyes in the field, but it just, the contrast and clarity and crispness of my sight picture it just is profound with that new Daylight Max lens. So if you guys haven't had a chance to try those, check them out. They're one of those products that when you put them on, you'll buy them. It's a phenomenal piece of gear. So, yeah, with that, let's dive into it. You've been out here for about 2 weeks?
Yeah, let me say one thing about those sunglasses.
Yeah.
You know, for years on flat light days, I've worn yellow shooting glasses. And these are every bit as good as way a step above.
Yeah, they're a step up. It's pretty incredible. In fact, I probably should have. I forgot them on our pheasant hunt, and I wished both the days we hunted in North Dakota for pheasants, I was really wishing I had them, because there were several times when we flushed birds that I couldn't tell if it was a hen or a rooster because the light was so flat.
Yes.
And we all talked about that on that hunt. I was like, man, was that a rooster or a hen? Where with those glasses, everything gets brighter, all the colors pop, and there's no doubt.
Yes.
And there would have been probably a couple more birds in the bag that got let go because we just couldn't tell. But yeah, those glasses are pretty stellar. They're every now and then you get your hands on a product and you're like, wow, this is game changing. And those Leupold Daylight Max lenses are pretty awesome.
Yes, they are.
Cool. Well, Dad, you've been out here for about 3 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, right about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I promised you that we'd get into birds and we'd do as much hunting as we possibly could. And we started off with a pheasant hunt with my buddy Steve in North Dakota.
Yep.
I've never hunted North Dakota. You'd never hunted North Dakota.
No.
And we didn't. It was DIY, but it wasn't a freelance deal. Kind of freelance, but we were hunting Steve's family farm. And holy smokes. All the locals were telling us there weren't a lot of birds this year, but.
Well, on Saturday, we had a bright bluebird day, and the birds were wild.
Yeah.
Hondo was working really well, but they were running. And
like typical wild roosters.
Oh, yeah. And they were flushing 100 yards out in front of us, if not more. Sunday, we woke up in the morning to fog, and we literally had birds flushing at our feet. They were really reluctant to fly.
Yeah, they didn't want to get up.
No. And I think we shot 2 or 3 the first day and 9 the second, or half a day. We only hunted about 3
on
hours.
Saturday, and I particularly was struggling on Saturday. I wasn't shooting very well. I talked about this earlier in the year that my first hunt of the year with the kids and Grace, I was lights out. It was like 6 for 6 on ducks with the Weatherby Orion over and under. And I was like, man, holy smokes. And I think I said it on a podcast. I was like, it's probably going to come back to bite me. I'm going to have a day where I can't hit anything. And it was Saturday. I was struggling. But yeah, those birds on Saturday were, there were only five of us hunting.
Yeah.
And our friend Steve's son was on that hunt, and that was not his first pheasant hunt, but he was still looking to kill his first rooster.
Yes.
And so he's still learning where to go, and you're directing him. But with 1 dog and 5 guys, we didn't have enough man or dog power to really hunt the cover that we were hunting effectively.
No, we could have had 8 or 10 guys and 4, 5, 6 dogs.
We needed more guys, especially at the one farm we got to. We were pushing a lot of birds out the end, and they were kind of wild, but it wasn't. They were not too bad, and that's definitely not like South Dakota in December.
No.
But it was. We needed more guys to pin birds. We just didn't have it. We just didn't have it. So we were doing the best we could to walk up birds. And you guys that hunt wild pheasants know that if you don't have your game plan lined out, they get around you. They'll sneak out the back door. Most of them run out in front and flush wild, which is definitely what we experienced. We killed birds, but man, I remember Saturday evening, this is something that sticks out in my brain. You and Steve were walking the edge of a crop field, and I was out to the south of you in the grass.
Yes.
And trying to get Hondo to work basically a shelter belt, a tree row with long grass in it. There was a slough out in the middle that was really skinny. It wasn't very wide at all, maybe as wide as this room. and with intermittent ponds in it, and it was just long prairie grass all around it. A couple 100 yards of it between that shelter belt and then the county road. And the wind was straight out of the south, and Hondo he'd hunt that tree belt, but he kept coming out of it, and he's one of very few labs that I've seen air scent like a pointer, like an English pointer. And he was doing that. He kept coming out of there, and his nose would go up, and his mouth would be about half open like he was tasting the air. And instead of redirecting him, after about the third time he came out of there and was pretty insistent on going out in that grass, I just let him go and stayed with him. And we had a morning hunt in, so he was hunting slow. I'd taken some of the vinegar out of him that morning, and he wasn't worn out or anything, but he was definitely at the pace that you want a lab to hunt. You know, a fast walk for the dog, basically, and covering ground and just being really methodical and thorough. Because he's a hard-charging dog, and a lot of times when you get him out of the crate, first thing, he's running over birds. You know, he's going too fast. And he's, you know, fairly inexperienced hunting pheasants as well. Yeah. And so I just let him go. I just let him hunt. And you guys were way off to the south, and I thought, you know what? They're on their own. They're going to have to – I just got to follow the dog. And he puts up a hen out there in the grass. And I thought, okay. We made a little loop, and he's getting birdie, and I see a rooster pop up about 100 yards away, and he pops up. And I think all he did was just like hop over the ditch because he popped up and went right back down. And I saw him. I marked where he went down. And Hondo was kind of on a line in that direction anyway, but I kind of veered him over there, and he got close, and he zeroed in on that bird and flushed it, and it flew right back between Steve and I, and we kind of pow one of those and killed it. And it was really cool. Then Hondo kept I wanted to hunt that slough, and he flushed it. Another bird got out wild on me that I didn't get a shot at. But then, holy smokes, he zeroed in, and we flushed 3 birds between the road, and we were pinning them against the county road. Right. They didn't want to cross that wide open barrier, and so he was pushing those birds, zigzagging through the grass, and head up, and he'd hunt head up into the wind, air scenting, and then I could tell every time he was getting close because his nose would go down, and then his nose be on the ground, typical of a lab, and he'd start, you know, getting crazy. And it was amazing to watch, though, because, you know, every dog's a little different in the way they work birds. You know, I think back to my first lab, Josie, and then before her, Carly, and there was no doubt when they were on a bird. I mean, the tail was whipping, and they were snuffing scent, and it was intense. And then we went into a foray of having German Shorthaired pointing dogs, GSPs, and that was a whole other learning curve, and we had a ton of fun hunting grouse and woodcock with them over the years. And
I killed more than a few pheasants over both of them.
Well, that's the thing. We hunted pheasants with them too, and they were great at that. But all my labs, the one thing that they've all had in common, Mackinac, Josie, Carly, they all worked nose on the ground, which is pretty typical of a flushing dog for the most part. And you guys may have some different experiences out there, but by and large, Labradors, especially Labradors, they hunt like a hound, man. That nose is on the ground, and they're ground scenting. So to watch Hondo hunt with his nose up in the air, literally head held high, kind of just at almost a walk, basically, just sorting out following that scent cone. Mm-hmm. And after the hen, I could tell what he was doing. And I thought, he's pinning those birds down on the air. And then as soon as that scent gets really hot and he gets close, then he's going into ground and pound mode. And holy smokes, he put up 3 roosters for me. I missed 2 of them. Those things haunt me, man. That night at dinner, Steve was like, "You all right?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm just, I can't get those misses out of my head." Anyway, you got to get over it and move on. But the third rooster he put up, or I guess would have been the 5th rooster he put up, I pounded it. I mean, he put it up nice and close. He was working nice and tight, and we were, it was just me and him, so we weren't talking. The bird really didn't know where we were. It was prairie grass, so it was pretty quiet walking. Yeah. And we pinned him. basically pinned him against that county road, against that big ditch, and he didn't want to go out. And he flushed to the left and clear shot. Nobody was in the way, no vehicles. And I took it and I dropped him, just head over heels, smoked him. And he bounced, hit the ground, and Hondo was right on him. I was like, perfect, got that one. Popped the gun open, dropped another Federal Prairie Storm in it, closed it, looked up, and Hondo was hunting instead of coming back to me with a pheasant. And I went, uh-oh. And I'd marked the bird down. I knew exactly where it fell, so I walked over there. And I got close, but, I always like to get about where I think the bird is and see if the dog overran it or it's scent washed or air washed or something. One reason he can't find it, it's not there. And I'm letting Hondo hunt, and he is just tearing it up in this one particular spot, back and forth, and like he's very intent and not coming up with anything. I thought, what in the world is going on? And I walk over there. Well, they had pulled all the telephone poles along the county road, all the old ones, and they put new poles in, but they didn't fill the old holes. And I got over there and looked, and Hondo kept sticking his head in the one hole. Oh, and these holes are like, how 8-10 feet deep,
Yeah, telephone pole hole.
And they're straight down. They're about the size of your, they're a telephone pole hole. And no doubt where that bird went, and I thought I crushed it. But the telephone pole that hole was about 3 or 4 feet from where that bird hit the ground. And man, Hondo hunted and hunted and hunted and hunted and hunted. And he hunted the ditch and he hunted down into the slough at the end. And we came back and he kept going to that hole. And I thought, that bird's in that hole. Mm-hmm. And it was crazy because I had on the next day, on Sunday, like you said, the birds were holding super tight. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And Hondo was a machine that day. He was thorough and,
You know what popped into my head when you were telling me afterwards about losing that bird? And there's a Rooster Cogburn line. That guy's been loading them, do no cheap reloads on
cheap
me.
Shells. I wasn't running cheap shells. It was not the shells. It was definitely me and my shooting that day. I was a half a bubble off plumb that day. Holy smokes.
That happens.
Anyway, I got home and started talking to a good friend, Tyler. You guys have seen Tyler on some of the videos. And Tyler's a dyed-in-the-wool pheasant hunter. It's his thing. If he could only hunt one thing, it would be pheasants. And he's like, oh, yeah, them roosters will think you smoked them and you hit the ground and the grass is long, you don't see them run, and they end up in a badger hole someplace. Mm-hmm. Like, I've seen that a bunch. So, but on Sunday, my limit bird, the bird that limited me out, my third bird, hit the ground, and I folded it. Hondo pinned it in a point in some cattails, and it's where you're walking everything back. You've already hunted it once, but you hunted one side of it. We made a big loop, killed a couple more birds, and then we hunt the other side that we didn't really hit. And there were some sparse cattails in there, and they went out to a point. I was like, man, if there's a bird in those cattails, he's going to be right in the very end of it,
Yep.
And he was. And Hondo just about caught him. He flushed him right at my feet. In fact, I heard the rooster squeak in there right before Hondo flushed him. So he must have been almost had a hold of him. And the bird flushed, and it was one of those deals where he flushes so close, I can't just shoot him. I got to wait. It seems like those are the shots you always miss when you have too much time to think.
Yep.
And he flies down straight away from me, and I'm like, yeah, right about there. And I mounted the gun, shot him, and same thing. Just tea-kettled him, just tumbled him. Hit the ground, and the grass was a little short where he landed, and he hits the ground, bounces up, and he's running. And I was like, dude, what is going on? And Hondo's hung up in the cattails still, so I take off, and I'm hollering at Hondo, and he comes. Well, by the time I got over there, the bird literally ran maybe 6 feet and died. And it was laying there doing the death flutter on its back.
Yeah.
But I wonder how many of those birds have that initial, they're dead on their feet, like a lung shot whitetail, and they make it into some hole someplace or some spot where your dog can't get them.
Yeah. They
know, like Hondo knew that bird was in that hole, but it's 10 feet deep, and I've heard stories of dogs digging and it was crazy, but I guess that's just part of pheasant hunting.
Well,
you do lose some birds.
Yeah, we were in South Dakota, and I had my little short hair, and flushed a bird 30 yards, right to left, made a great shot, it went down, and got her right over there, and she goes on point, and she would point dead. I couldn't ever get her to retrieve, and she pointed dead, and so I walked a couple feet out in front of her, nothing. I'm looking around in the grass, nothing. So I look back at her, and she's literally looking straight down. I put my gun down, kneel down, and I'm 2 feet from this bird, and you can't see him. And I just grabbed all the grass. I got him. And that's how efficient they are at escaping when they want to.
It's amazing that a bird that's that gaudy, we call them ditch parrots and all this other stuff, that how well they can hide. And in plain sight, they can just be still and hide. And, I go back to a podcast a few weeks back that Josh and I did that you guys have blown up, especially on Facebook with the comments section. And there was one snippet out of that podcast where I talked about keeping your dog at heel and hunting quietly. And the pointing dog guys just lit me up over that comment. But it's just one snippet out of that podcast. And we were talking about a wide variety of ways to hunt upland birds, especially pheasants, because it was pheasant season opener. And it was timely conversation. But that we ran that one little snippet, and it generated a bunch of views and a bunch of comments, which is great. I love the engagement.
Yes.
But it's not that I'm keeping Hondo or any dog at heel all the time. In that case, when we were hunting Saturday, on Sunday in particular, we needed him to cover ground and work because those birds were holding so tightly.
Yep.
They did not want to fly in that wet, heavy air. My beard was just drenched after about 30 minutes.
We had 3 or 4 birds after, even with 2 or 3 guys going through it, and the dog flushed behind us.
Yeah. The first rooster I shot on Sunday morning, Hondo brought it to me, and I was stuffing it in my vest and had the gun broke open, and another bird got up right next to me.
Yeah.
And so, there's no doubt Hondo was probably overrunning some of those, but there was so much scent on the ground that day, and the scenting conditions were so ideal that it had to be like sensory overload for that dog.
Yeah.
And so that day, I'm making him hunt, but I am keeping him close because he's a flushing dog. It's like I need you 30 yards max, but I need you thoroughly covering all this thick, heavy cover that we're hunting in. But, other times, especially seems like late season, I think back to the farm you live on in Iowa, even though it doesn't get hardly any hunting pressure, by December at Christmas time, those birds have evaded hunters on the farm next door, across the road. They've evaded hawks. They've evaded all kinds of predators, and they have one of 2 responses. They either run and flush so wild there's no way you're going to get out in front of them, or they hide. And when you're quiet, and in that particular scenario, when you're quiet, your dog's quiet, no bell, no beeper, just keeping your dog as close as possible. If it's not at heel, that's fine, but close, under control, and letting it find those birds, those hidden birds that are right at your feet, man, it's effective. But I think it has to do with the being quiet part. Because on Sunday, we would get, whenever we stopped, that was another thing I noticed, whenever we would pause and stop for a minute to let Hondo hunt or sort something out, or we'd have to redirect the party to move, we always flushed a bird when we were stopped and standing still.
Yes.
And you taught us that years ago.
Well, what happens is they think they're hidden. And when you're walking along and you stop, and I stumbled on this accidentally years ago, the second part of it. I always read about walking up birds. And I will stop for 20 seconds, 30 seconds.
And it's hard to do in a big group of guys.
And then I will say, hey, you better get out of here. And the human voice triggers, if they're anywhere close, the human voice triggers that flush. And I did it with you accidentally the first time to remind myself, walking in, stopped, looked at you and said, Todd, you better.
Yep.
And I mean, I thought, okay, I remember that now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, and that worked on. Now, this is work on roosters. It works on rough grouse. Works on a lot of different and rough grouse. Today's rough grouse. It's interesting because hunting out west, everybody thinks rough grouse in general are just dumb, except for the guys that are putting dogs on the ground, and they're like, no. You hunt blue, especially duskies. You hunt them in open country where they got to fly. A dog changes the game because archery guys that are out hunting elk in September or deer in September are killing these birds with rocks. And they think they're dumb, and they are much more naive than the birds in the upper Midwest and in the Northeast. But it has to do with these birds get nervous when you stand still because they think they're spotted by that point.
Yeah.
They're not hidden anymore because it's that freeze. And I've always found it interesting that a really good pointing dog, doesn't matter the breed, can pin a bird because they don't put too much pressure on the bird. They're not moving, but they're not so close right on top of a bird quite often, especially pheasants, where they've done the job. They've circled around, got the bird pinned between you and them, and it's a work of art. It really is.
Yes,
It's beautiful to watch. But I guess going back to that episode that I was talking about that blew up in the Facebook in particular, there's not one strategy to hunting upland birds. There's a lot of strategies, and you have to be able to adjust on the go if you can. Like the group, our trip to North Dakota we had limited guys and one dog, and
limited time.
Yeah, we had a day and a half to hunt.
We got there late Friday night, hunted all day Saturday, rough day. Weather was too nice.
Yeah, it was warm.
Yep. And then Sunday morning came, like I said, with fog and much chillier, and it changed everything.
It would have been, you and I talked about this too on the drive home. We were like, what a day to have a pointing dog.
Yeah.
Because those birds they weren't running at all. Everything was holding super tight. Man, what a day. I feel, Hondo had a ball. He did a great job. But talk about ideal bird behavior to have a pointing dog that just locks them down and you walk in and flush them. That'd been cool.
I thought about that a couple times during our hunt and was watching how close the birds were flushing. And after the first two or three, I would have given anything to have either one of my short hairs from the past, Hannah or Briley. And, especially Hannah. She came pretty well preconditioned, and she'd been in South Dakota a lot. And I watched her pin birds we came around the corner of a little swale, and it's blown down split grass. Switchgrass, and it's this tall. That's all that's left because the wind blew it flat, and she's on point. And I looked at my buddy and I said, never call your dog a liar. And I walked in, and a big old rooster blew out of that. I don't know how he hid in that, but he did. And he didn't last very long.
Hey guys, this episode of the Wingmen podcast is brought to you by High Mountain Seasonings. The folks down at High Mountain Seasonings in Riverton, Wyoming have had my business since before I started working at Eastmans and way before Wingmen was even an idea in my head. I've been making homemade jerky and sausage and you name it, snack and sticks with their kits for a really, really long time. Having the pleasure a couple years ago to go down and take a factory tour and film that and do a duck hunt with one of the guys from the company, Brian Tucker, was a pleasure. They have such a cool operation down there in Riverton, Wyoming, and to think that their product from little old Riverton spreads out all over the country and into Canada is mind-blowing. I know they do business internationally as well, but it's incredible to me. I can go in so many different places, from the local grocery store to any of the big box sporting goods stores, and find that product. I can go in, I can grab a box, I can take it home, and I can, within 48 hours or 72 hours, I can have some of the best goose jerky known to man. I can put that on a plate, and you wouldn't know it's goose. I mean, a lot of guys be like, wow, this is amazing venison jerky. And it's like, hey, thanks. Yeah, you're eating goose. Like, what? This is goose? thank you, High Mountain Seasonings. It's not just jerky kits, though, that those guys do. They have a whole ton of products. So I would recommend that you go over to highmountainjerky.com and check out the full assortment of products that they've got down there in Riverton, Wyoming.
It's funny that marsh grass and switchgrass stuff gets blown over like that. And those birds, a lot of times, they know they're really well hidden underneath that stuff. And it's hard for any dog, to even find those birds because the grass suppresses the scent and holds it to the ground, holds that air pocket under. There's an air pocket under that grass.
Yeah.
And you got to have either a dog with a ridiculously good nose or a dog that's really thorough. And that's been, hunting with a lot of different guys. We've been hunting upland birds in one shape or form since I was legally able to hunt at 12 years old. That's what we did. So I've seen it all, man. I've seen great dogs. I've seen mediocre dogs. I've seen bad dogs. I've seen, and so bad dogs, what quantifies a bad dog? Well, it's usually a bad owner or an owner that hasn't put the time into that dog.
The dog's not under control.
But there are some times when you do get a dog that's just not great. But the one thing that's always stuck out to me is the guys that are really serious upland bird hunters. And I don't care what they chase. They usually have several dogs, and they have dogs of different breeds that have different specialties. Like they'll have a great big running dog, whether it's a GSP or an even bigger runner like an English pointer.
Yeah.
Or a couple of them, to those big days when you got to cover a ton of ground. I think about out here hunting chuckers, and you have to cover so much ground that a big running dog is essential. Hunting chuckers with a Labrador Retriever, it's doable, and I do it with Hondo, but it's not the preferred method. I won't say it's not fun. It's fun, but it's a lot more effective when you have a good big running pointing dog that pins birds and holds them for sure.
Well, if you're going to hunt chuckers or Huns with a dog, which you have to, it's got to be a pointer, unless you got track shoes and are in tremendous shape, because that lab's going to flush them.
Anyway, it's definitely hunting chuckers with a Labrador is definitely not ideal. But that goes back to my point about multiple disciplines. And we've killed birds doing it, but it's not. Definitely, I would much rather have a big running pointer.
Oh, yeah.
But, it never fails to amaze me how you go places like up in Montana hunting with the guys up there, Montana Upland, and Bryce DeVries with High Step Kennels. He'll have – Bryce loves his pointers, but he's also got some German dogs. He's got wire hairs, and he's got a couple labs. And he's got – I don't know if Bryce had any springers on that hunt, but there were some springers on the hunt we did. And the last day we hunted with them, we had all the dogs in the field. It was a great big group of us. I got a tickle in my throat. And the pointers are covering country, locking birds down, and we're hustling over to them. And then we got into this big, thick, heavy cover slough that was full of pheasants, and just full. And the edges of it, the slopes of it, up on the plateaus is where the sharp tails and the Huns were, but down in that bottom was where those pheasants wanted to be in that thick stuff. And that's where those brush busters, whether it's a Springer, a Lab, a wire hair, man, they really came into their own because they're a tight cover dog. And holy smokes, did we flush birds out of there. Yep. And we shot birds over all the dogs. But that particular scenario, and I just think about that, hunting really heavy cover, man, I tend to want a Lab in that scenario.
Right.
I just do. More open stuff, it's tough to beat a big running pointing dog. It really, really is, whether it's big swaths of prairie grass or big stubble fields with long edges on them that dogs can pin stuff in. But that tight cover, that heavy stuff, holy smokes, man.
Yeah.
But we got that through that first hunt that morning, and we killed 9 roosters, 10 roosters out of that. And my buddy's son got his first rooster.
Yeah,
that was
cool.
A big deal.
That made the day.
Oh yeah, 100%. I always love watching anybody, but especially a kid, get their first bird.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. He was so surprised. Hondo put that bird up in front of him, and he pulled up, and the gun went off, and he's like, I got him.
Yeah.
I got him. He's like, of course, he's reliving it, and he's like, I couldn't see him when I shot. And I said, that's why you hit him.
Yep.
And I said, your barrel, you had him blocked out. You pulled the trigger. You did it. Now you got to replicate that. The bird was a straightaway for him, so you just block it out and pull the trigger. And, yeah, it worked great. Super cool. But, man alive, we got done with that one, and we got back to the farmhouse, and my buddy wanted to do one more push. And there was something in me that said, nah, we've had enough. But he'd been talking ever since we got there on Friday afternoon about, I want to push this. I want to push this spot. I want to push this spot. It was later in the morning, and this is all cattails and slewgrass. Most of the birds have moved out of that by this time of the day, and they're on the edges of the stubble because that's where the feed is.
Yep.
They're food-oriented by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Well, that was a common denominator on our successful hunt.
Right.
We were in right on the edge of harvested grain fields.
Right.
In fact, I shot 3 birds walking on the edge of the field. You
Right.
guys were feeling sorry for me, taking it easy on me. But that's where they were because that's where their food was.
Right. And I think, early in the mornings or in the evenings, that heavier, denser cover is definitely what you want to focus on. And early in the morning on Sunday, that's what we were hitting.
Yeah.
On Saturday, we didn't get quite as early of a start, and those birds were definitely on the edges of the stubble more, and and it showed because they were a lot more apt to run and get out ahead of us. But anyway, he wanted to hunt this, and I kind of felt like, yeah, man, we killed 9 or 10 roosters, and we got a couple others from the day before. We got a almost 7-hour drive to get home, and I'm like, we should probably just bag it. And I'm thinking this in my head, and we start in on the hunt, and the cattails were thick. And, of course, typical Hondo, he knows that's where the birds are going to be, so he goes diving in there. And he's rooting around, and we flushed a few birds, but it wasn't – we needed to be hunting different cover at that time of the day.
Right.
When we walked it through to the farm road, got out, and we're all kind of standing around trying to figure out what we want to do next. And I look down, and Hondo has a flap of skin hanging off of him in front of his hind quarter. I didn't see the puncture wound on his side, but he's got this big flap of skin, probably 3 inches long, 1.5 inches wide, just flayed open. Kind of like it's like if you peel back a hangnail, that's what it looked like, except way bigger. And he's not like bleeding profusely, but he's dripping some blood, and it's just that first layer of skin with the hair attached is peeled right back.
Yep.
And right there, I called it. I'm like, we're done. And everybody kind of realized we probably should have bagged it anyway before that. But it's one of those things that it's been kind of haunting me ever since that weekend, that there was a little voice telling me, nah, man, you guys should just bag it. You had a good morning hunt. You got a long drive. You should just go. If I would have listened to that and been like, nah, let's get cleaned up and go, I wouldn't have had my dog tore up.
You'd have had a dog for the hunt we did.
Which leads me to last Friday. Because Hondo has been in a cone. No stitches needed. We found another cut or another puncture wound on him. And, all I can think of is there was one point in particular where he was in those cattails. There was water in them, and the bottom was soft, and he was lunging in those cattails. And I think he must have those cattail.
Dry cattail stalks.
They're sharp, and you break them off, and they're stout. Almost like a corn stalk.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what happened. I suppose he could have gotten hung up in an old piece of equipment in there. Or, who knows?
Yeah.
It was almost knee-deep water, and so I didn't go down into it. But I should have listened to that voice and been like, nah, we're good. And I think back to that, and I'm like, the older I get, I have noticed, despite that particular instance, that the older I get, the more I listen to that voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I would have, because Hondo's been in a cone. We've been getting him healed up all week long. I didn't have him to hunt ducks on Friday. Thus, I called Josh Lancaster with Red Flash Retrievers, been on the podcast a million times. I'm like, hey, you want to go duck hunting on Friday? He's like, yeah, absolutely. And there's
one hilarious side note. His little buddy Rooster has trying to get his daddy out of that cone has literally chewed the edges of that cone to pieces.
That cone is so chewed up, and we're trying to keep them separated in the house, but Rooster, Hondo's son Rooster, is just like fascinated with this cone and won't leave it alone. But Hondo's healing up good. Everything's scabbed over nice. No stitches needed. Just putting wound heal spray on it. And we got it at the ranch store, and it's healing up. In fact, I was going to take the cone off of him today at lunch and got home, and my wife said, that scab kind of peeled back a little bit. And I looked at it, and I said, all right, yeah. So we sprayed some more spray on it. Sorry, buddy, but you got to be in the cone for a while, And no, really not a lot of exercise, because I want it to heal. And trying to keep a dog like Hondo from exercising is, anyway. Healing him up so we got the rest of the season to hunt. Pheasant hunting is just so hard on dogs. I don't care what breed they are. It's just that the cover, there's barbed wire, there's old equipment hidden in the grass. There's a million different things, and it boils down to it where if you're going to take on a big, long, week-long, 4 or 5 day long pheasant hunt, you better have more than one dog to use, because you're going to wear them out. Well,
there's one point that I learned the hard way. The second time my little short-hair Briley poked a hole in herself, we were scheduled to go to the Upper Peninsula on a bird hunt, a week-long hunt, my wife and I. And I thought, all right, how do I do this? And the vet says, you got to keep it covered. And so I went to Goodwill and bought a bunch of kids' T-shirts that would fit her, put them on her, and then if I can make a recommendation to you guys that have hard-charging dogs, I bought a hog dog vest. Literally from here to their withers, belly, chest, and back are covered in neoprene, and it's orange.
Well, and there's lots of companies out there that make upland dog vests that have armor on them and different things. And the one thing about putting those on a dog like Hondo is he's going to overheat really fast wearing those things. But a thin-skinned, light-haired dog like a short hair or a pointer, if you're going to hunt heavy cover with them, it's definitely not a bad idea. Boots, that's another one. You see guys running boots on dogs. You see that mostly in chucker country, because the sharp lava rocks, and it's just hard on a dog's feet.
Or sandburrs.
Yeah, and we get that here. Guys that hunt the desert, they go down south and hunt quail in Arizona, and you got a whole fleet of dogs. You just got to kind of be really careful with your dogs, and then letting them heal up. I physically, could I have hunted Hondo on Friday on that duck hunt? Yeah, but I didn't want to do that. It's like, let him heal. Let him heal, and then we got a long season. We barely have any birds to speak of, but it's snowing and raining outside right now, a couple days before Thanksgiving, and it's setting us up to have a really stellar next couple of weeks.
Yes.
And so I'm excited about it, and Hondo's going to be healed up. He's going to be ready to go, and it's going to be mostly duck hunting, water retrieving, and there's not a lot, that he can hurt himself on in the scenarios I'm going to put him in. But, I'm a year out from having 2 dogs to put on the ground, which I'm excited for. Even with labs, man, it's nice to have a rotation. Mm-hmm. And if I had my druthers, I'd have 5, 6, 7 dogs. I'd have a whole kennel full of dogs. But, it's just not in the cards for me right now to have that. But, man, I would. And it would be – I would love to have that. But I'm not there. And that's something I told you, but back to about hunting with an outfitter, and we'll get to that in a second. But to the duck hunt on Friday, I called Josh. He's like, yeah, I'd love to go. I'm finishing up all my Wyoming dream hunts, which are big game hunts that they do for terminally ill kids. Mm-hmm. And they had some great mule deer hunts with the kids they had. They were all done, wrapped up. Josh is ready to work dogs. I said, all right, but I need you to bring 2 dogs because Hondo's out of commission. He's like, yeah, absolutely. So he brought his stud Jasper and then Dara, who's kind of the founder of his kennel. And we went, and man, I would have sworn to you that we were going to just slay those birds, because up until a week ago, we had a nice little pocket of birds in this one particular spot. They just disappeared. I mean, we shot 6 ducks, probably could have killed more. If we wouldn't have been trying to film it, we definitely would have killed more birds.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm holding you guys off from shooting, because I'm like, they're not in the decoys. They're doing the old wing set flyby at 35 yards, looking at the decoys, but they're not angel winging into the decoys. And it became pretty evident a couple birds into the morning that it was going to be tough, And so, but Josh's dogs were awesome. They were rock solid.
Oh, yeah.
They retrieved beautifully, well-behaved, well-mannered. Just goes into everything that he and I have talked about: obedience first, and then drill down into the skills. And, his dogs were great. And we killed some birds. We got some content. It was a ton of fun. And I got to share blind with you and Josh.
Yep.
It was a great time.
Breakfast burrito and a thermos of coffee.
Yep.
Makes the morning.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. And, I handed you a Weatherby Orion over and under and said, you're going to shoot this. The 12 gauge, I was shooting a 20 gauge model. I was like, you're going to shoot this. And you kind of threw it up. I think I could shoot that. And handed you some Federal Premium Black Cloud, and man, you were lights out.
Well, every guy has a day once in a while.
Yeah, in fact, he looked at us and goes, you young guys need me to teach you how to shoot a shotgun? But I think I only pulled the trigger 3 times that morning, which was fine with me. And Josh killed a couple. You killed a couple. Dogs got some retrieves, and we just had a good time cutting up and spending time in God's creation and just enjoying our time out there.
Yes.
But after that hunt, I said, and I'm talking about this because I'm going to talk about your affinity for pointing dogs. Your short hair Briley died 2 years ago?
3.
3 years ago. And you've been without a dog since then. And not really having the ability with everything that's went on with Mom and her health.
Yeah.
Didn't have the ability to have a dog.
No.
And so, but with Mom passing in August, it's kind of opened you up to having some time to have a dog and some opportunities. And honestly, you kind of found yourself full-time caretaker for Mom, and that journey ended. And it's like, well, now what? I got a lot of time on my hands, and a dog is a really good way to fill that hole.
But I had a real conundrum. I've had 3 labs and 2 short hairs. 4 of the 5 were excellent. More luck than skill on getting them to hunt the way I wanted them to. And I was torn.
Yeah.
It's one of my best friends is gone. He passed away 10 years ago. My other best friend doesn't get around very well anymore. And
well, you're kind of at that age.
Well, yeah, and I'm suffering with my knees right now because I fell off that blind last year or last spring. And I thought, okay, if I follow my love, I'll get another pointer. But if you're hunting by yourself and you're doing the flushing,
and you can't walk great,
well, hopefully by next fall I'll be healed. But I thought, you go in and they're never in the open. And
you're talking about hunting, especially grouse and woodcock.
Yeah, and which is my passion. And you might hear the bird get up, never see it.
Yeah, a lot of times you walk in and the guy doing the flushing behind the dog is the sacrificial lamb, and the guys on the outside are the ones getting the shots when the bird clears the cover.
Absolutely. Now, on the other hand, we killed a boatload of grouse and woodcock over my black lab Carly.
Yep.
In fact, there was one story that I'll tell real quickly. we knocked a woodcock down. And I don't know if you boys were old enough to hunt or if you were just tagging along that day. And we tried to get over to it, and Carly was working in from the left, and the bird reflushed. Wounded, but reflushed. And she took a leap and caught that bird out of the air.
Right.
And it was like, whoa. So do I get a lab, teach him to hunt close, work the brush, keep myself in the open
right.
as best I can, and let her do the work? Or do I get another pointer? Yeah. And I was torn. I struggled with it. And if you're struggling with getting another dog, don't go look at a bunch of puppies.
Or do go look at a bunch of puppies.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and this is what it boiled down to. Josh has some started dogs from the litter that from the litter he did with Hondo this summer. And we did that litter because I wanted another dog. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of why we did that. And he's still got some females left, and which is what you wanted. And the conversation got down to what you just talked about. And I told you, Dad, I know you want a pointing dog, or you think you want another pointing dog. But if you want to do that, go hunt with a guide.
Yeah. Go
to Pine Ridge Kennel or Pine Ridge Grouse Camp.
Which I did last fall. And Todd mentioned about hunting multiple dogs, and it was 80 degrees.
Yep.
And the longest that I was on the ground with a dog was 90 minutes.
Well, and you look at that, and if you're doing that by yourself, you're gonna be real limited.
Oh yeah.
Because you're gonna be able to hunt that dog for about an hour max, and then you got to put it away.
And you got to be smart enough to know your dog's limits when it's that hot. Because we went to South Dakota probably 15 years ago, 80 degrees. 2 dogs got into the barbed wire fence, got cut up, went to the vet, got talking to him about the heat and stuff, and he said, yeah, right now me and my buddies have counted 81 dead dogs.
Yeah, heat stroke dogs.
Because the guys didn't know enough to quit.
Yep. Yeah, you can easily walk a dog to death when the conditions are hot.
Yes.
And so when you go with a guide or an outfitter, whether it's a pheasant outfitter, a quail outfitter down south, wherever, they're going to have a pile of dogs.
Yeah.
They're going to be paying attention and circulating through those dogs, and you're going to get your pointing dog fix without having to worry about your dog, overhunting your dog, because you want to hunt just as much. The dog wants to hunt just as much, if not more, than you do.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll hunt themselves right into death if you're not careful. But with a lab, and this is kind of why I said, Dad, I think you need a lab. One is the flushing, because you can put the dog in the cover and you can stay on a logging road, or you can stay on the edge of a field or a slough. The dog can work the heavy stuff and push birds to you.
Yes.
It's like having another buddy down in there is what
yeah.
it is. And so it's a pretty effective combo, man. I've killed a lot of rooster pheasants late in the season by sending the dog in stuff and then circling around, not following the dog, letting the dog work stuff, and I'm basically playing blocker, flanking and getting out in front of the dog, and bird flushes and it flies right over your head because the bird doesn't know that you're there.
No.
Just trying to get away from the dog. And then on the lifestyle side of it, you want a pet at the same time. And
all my dogs have been pets.
Yeah, mine too. And for our personalities and what we like, man, a black lab really fits that mold really, really well.
Yeah. And
so anyway, I said, let's go just look at these pups. And there was no pressure. I didn't, I knew you'd either say, yep, let's do it, or no, I'm not ready. And there's no pressure. Let's just go look at them and see if you like them. If you see what you think, because they may not be, what you're looking for. And let them out, let the 3 females out, and they're running around crazy. And there's one little girl, smaller than the rest, and she's sweet, man. Not only is she sweet personality-wise, but she wants to hunt. Like the other 2 are running around doing their thing, and she's over like kind of hunting a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I know which one I'd want.
Plus she came right to me. several times. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay. And you talk about female. All my dogs have been females. And I'll issue maybe a controversial statement here, but my experience is, especially with Carly, my last lab, and Briley, my last short hair, I started them at 10 months old.
Yeah.
And again, that may be controversial, but I firmly believe that female dogs hunt at least 6 months to a year faster than a male.
I think so. Josh and I have talked about this too, and I think so. Males take a little bit longer to develop, and not that you can't, because I think back to Mackinac, and I killed 64 roosters over Mackinac before he was a year old.
Oh yeah,
he was like 6 to 7 months when I was shooting those roosters over him, and man, he was awesome.
Yep.
He was flushing them, finding them, retrieving them, hunting like a big dog, and holy smokes, till the day he died, that was his favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's no doubt about that. But on the retrieving side of things, like hunting waterfowl, Mackinac didn't hit his stride till he was 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I would argue that 6 to 8 is when he was incredible.
Well, what was the day you filmed him climbing the cliff and coming back down with that goose?
8.
He was 8 years old.
He was 8 years old in that video. And he just didn't, he was amazing. And so, I tend to agree with you on that. And there's going to be people listening to this who are like, no, that's hogwash. My male dog was doing this. And
I know.
Yeah, everybody's experiences are different. But by and large, I think you're right that if you need a dog to hunt within a year, a female is probably a better bet. And they all come with different things. I like the tractability because I've owned both. I've owned females and I've owned males.
Yep.
And for what I do with my Labradors is 90% waterfowl with about 10% pheasant hunting, mainly pheasant hunting thrown in. A little bit of chucker hunting, but not much because I'd rather hunt chuckers with a pointy dog. But for what I want, a male is a better fit for me.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to swim fast, cold water.
And not that a female can't do it.
Oh, no.
Because, Josie was a machine. Carly was a machine. They were great dogs, and they were powerful.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Just for me, my personality, what I want out of a duck dog, I want a male.
Yeah.
And that's just me. But for you wanted a female, which, okay, great.
And I can probably say with pretty much accuracy that Maddie, my new little lab pup, may never retrieve a duck.
Oh yeah, she will.
But
she'll be out here.
But she'll
be out here retrieving waterfowl.
Well, she's going to be after pheasants, grouse, and woodcock.
Well, and you live, that farm that you live on is just loaded with pheasants.
Oh yeah.
And I think when you get home and you guys get your late deer tags filled and get everything, so you're not disturbing the deer hunting, that I would have her on birds every day, and it's going to be good for you. And it gives you something else to focus on because, you went from taking care of someone to now all your time is your own.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure this out. Well, now you got somebody to take care of again and somebody that's going to take care of you.
Oh, yeah.
In a whole other way.
Yep.
And it's going to be challenging. It's been a long time since you've had a puppy. And so she's going to chew stuff up. She's going to do things. You're going to forget to put her in the kennel when you do something. She's going to destroy something. And you're going to be like, But in the end, in the long run, she's going to be a great companion.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why we have dogs.
Yeah.
We hunt them, and they love to hunt. And we love to hunt with them. But for me, man, they're a companion.
Yep.
My house would be very empty if I didn't have 2 labs in it. And it's not empty right now. You've been here for 3 weeks. My house is chaos.
Yeah. Well,
controlled chaos.
It doesn't help that Hondo still hasn't figured out that cone. And
oh my gosh.
Runs into everything.
And he's such a bull that he just plows through stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that cone, I don't know how much more duct tape I can put on that cone before it just falls off. But
I know.
Anyway, we're about to the end of that. But yeah, I'm excited for you. You're going to have so much fun with Maddie. the training process to the hunting process, and you can have a buddy. You know, you're going to have a little buddy to go places with you. Now, my brother's probably not going to be very excited.
Actually, you know, Scott's talked about the pheasants, and he said we need another dog. But he you know, he's a funeral director, never has a fixed schedule. He might get called out 3 times in the middle of the night. I don't think he's going to be upset about it. I'm not crazy about
it's the
shed, the hair
for him, because he's like, there's going to be hair all over that house, but you can clean up hair.
Oh yeah,
you know, that's a small price to pay, and I guarantee you he's going to be infatuated with that dog when you get her home.
Absolutely,
and she's going to win hearts. But I'm excited for you. I think she's going to be great. I think you're going to have, you know, you're like I said, you're in for some challenges with her. Mm-hmm. You know, because
I've had labs, puppies.
But it's been a while.
Oh yeah,
you know, and I'm happy for you because I think it gives you something to focus on, something to do.
Yeah, and
it's just another adventure.
Well, you know, and you talked about the farm. It's 160 acres. Scott's father-in-law owns 200 acres right across the draw from us. We have permission to hunt several different farms around. But there's one common denominator that 2 years ago, the state of Iowa said you can kill coons 365 days a year, any time of the day or night, dog or not, just do it. In fact, they actually we're going to put a $5 bounty on it, and of course other people got involved, and that went by the side. But I've trapped, between me and the neighbor, we've trapped over 400 coons in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And I know from Scott talking to his buddies that he's associated with it, everybody's trapping coons.
Yeah.
And we have, the whole state of Iowa has pheasants.
Yeah, Iowa posted some numbers in August this year while I was there, and they said this is the highest number of birds, pheasants.
1980.
No, it was back further than that.
Was it?
It was like the 50s.
Well, you look at it at one time, there were more pheasants killed in Iowa than South Dakota.
Yep. Yeah, and so you guys have a phenomenal opportunity to shoot all kinds of roosters over this dog. Plus, you got a game farm down the road, and you buy membership to that. That's more controlled, which especially for a young dog, to get a young dog on contacts and retrieving, that's going to be perfect.
Yeah,
you can go out, you work your dog on easy birds, and just get those early contacts built, because it takes birds to make a bird dog, and wild birds can be fickle. You know, just because they're there doesn't mean you're going to get contact with them.
No.
You know, and anyway, it's going to be a ton of fun. Yeah, I'm excited for you. Yeah. I'm excited to get that picture of Maddie brought me a bird today. You know, that's because it's going to happen probably in the next couple of weeks. You're going to get her home and take her for walks and shoot a bird over her.
Yeah, at least get her out and let her do some smelling.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And she will flush birds. I mean, you can flush birds walking down the mowed path.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll keep her tight, close on a check cord to start. You know, she's learning. She needs to learn her range. But yeah, I think, Dad, once she figures out all the obedience stuff, you know, and like Josh and I have talked about, you can't build too much obedience into a dog.
No.
And it's 90% of hunting problems with dogs are obedience problems. Mm-hmm. And I mean, a million people have said that. But it's true, you know, whether it's retrieving issues or hunting issues or just loading them up in the truck, man, you see guys just stuffing dogs into kennels, and I'm like, why wouldn't you take the time to train that dog to kennel up?
Well,
and I get it, you know, I'm not really dogging on anybody because life's busy. But this goes back to something that we talked about with Maddie, because you were a little hesitant. She's 6 months old. And I was like, So, she's not going to have that, you know, that bond with me. And I told you, no, that's not true. She will bond with you. You're going to have a lot of one-on-one time, and she will be your dog.
Yeah.
And, but having some of that stuff, some of those training stuff built in with a started dog for somebody like my brother, it makes sense to him if he wanted a bird dog to go buy a fully trained one. Because he doesn't have the time to put into training one.
That's when I was thinking, trying to make up my mind, there was no doubt if I was going to go with another pointer, it would at least be started and maybe finished.
Sure. And I think that makes 100% sense. But with Maddie, she started, she's got some rudimentary stuff, and you're actually working with Josh this week.
Yeah.
He's keeping her primarily so I don't have 3 dogs in my house. One of them oh man. And Thanksgiving, my wife would love it, but it'd be a lot.
Yeah.
You're going to go work with Josh, and he's going to train you as much as he's going to work with Maddie, because he's going to train you on this is your roadmap for success right here. Yeah. These are the 6 things that you need to be working on. And having a trainer that's willing to do that and teach you right along with that dog is really cool, because then you're involved in the process.
Yeah.
And when you get home, you can just build on those foundationals that you're going to put in place this week.
Well, and I have the ideal spot. We have a little pond that probably not in the middle of summer when it's slimy, but I can get her in.
Yeah. And
we have a creek on the farm, so there'd be some chances for her to play in the water a little bit. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm more than a little nervous because it's been 18 years since I've had a lab. It's 15 years since I've had a lab. I know what they can do. Probably better than my last short hair. You guys were both gone. You and Scott were both gone, and you guys thought it was horrible, but Bradley slept under the covers with me.
Well, and those are all decisions that you want to build in, but Grace and I kind of gave you some pointers on, like, these are things that you need to think about with a dog. When you have people come over to your house and you have to put your dog away because it's uncontrollable, that's a problem. Yeah. And that's a problem on you. And so, man, you need to socialize the dog, take it everywhere you go. We've talked about this. And then train it. If it can't get on the furniture or up on your lap unless you call it. Yeah. And those types, and you'll figure all that out. But
watching Rooster,
you're gonna have fun.
Oh yeah, and watching Rooster the last couple of days has been more than a few smiles. The other night, here he goes down the hallway into Jed's room, comes back with a pair of underwear. By the time Jed's got the underwear away from him, he's gone back in the room and gotten a sock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my kids have learned they can't leave doors open.
No,
because Rooster will find all of their things.
Oh yeah.
And he's really good. It's honestly, a lot of people would. This is an interesting point. Years ago, I would have been very hard on that behavior. Mm-hmm. And gotten really hard on the dog. But I'm using it as an opportunity to practice fetch and hold. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got a shoe in your mouth. You're not allowed to have that. So bring it here, fetch it up, bring it to him, give. Yep. And it's a chance he works on delivery and he works on hold. And, every time I have something, I need to bring it to Dad.
Yeah.
It's all about spinning those behaviors. And when you're younger, especially me, I was way too hard on dogs. I mean, my dogs were great, but there's things that you look back on with every dog you train and go, I wish I'd have done that different. I wish I'd done that different. And with Rooster, he's super mouthy. I mean, he always wants to have something in his mouth, which is awesome for a Labrador. That's what you want. But instead of discouraging that behavior, I've encouraged it, but he has to bring it to me, and then it's a fetch. It's a retrieve.
And I watched you with Mackinac, and on more than one occasion, and he would frustrate the daylights out of you. But if you think about what you were watching, Mackinac would not put himself in a place where he could get hurt.
Yeah, and Mackinac was an interesting case because he was incredibly smart and had a lot of drive, but he would not do things that I wanted him to do because he's like, yeah, man, I'm not jumping off that ice. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And Hondo, it's the other way, where I didn't really have to worry about Mackinac, because if it was dangerous, he was going to either figure out a safe way to do something, or he wasn't going to do it.
Yes.
And Mac never cost me a bird. It wasn't like there was anything I asked him to do that he wouldn't do, but he might find his own way to do it. Where Hondo, I have to watch. I have to be like, okay, there's nothing he's going to smash into here. He's not going to impale himself, or he's not going to hit that rock, because he's got one speed and he just goes. Yeah. Now, and I'm starting to see some of that as he gets older. You know, he was really good with fences on our North Dakota hunt. Mm-hmm. He was really careful around the fences.
Surprisingly, because he's not around a lot of fences.
No, he's around a lot of fences. That's one thing about living out west. There's fences everywhere. And he's had enough run-ins with barbed wire where he's gotten cut that he's slow. He's a little bit slower around fences now. But there was still one time there was barbed wire buried in the grass, and it's old, and he didn't see it, and he ran chest first into it, and I was like, oh, man. And he did it right in front of me, and I thought, oh, my goodness. And he bounces off of it and jumps over the fence. I'm like, come here. And I laid him down and looked him over, and no blood. You know, now that he's scabbed over from some of that stuff, there was a big, long scratch, but it was just a scratch.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't flay him open or anything. And your bird dogs are going to get that. They're going to get cut up. They're going to get wounded because they're athletes. And we're asking them to do really hard things and demanding things in the skin that God gave them.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, when your vet looks at you and tells you that the piece of wood that he just took out of your short hair's neck is the worst puncture wound he's ever seen a dog survive, it's like, Briley, slow down.
Well, it's one of those things that I would rather have a dog that I have to rein in than a dog that I have to like kick in the butt.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but that comes when you have a hard charging dog of any breed, you're going to sew them up. You're going to have times when you can't hunt them for a week or two, sometimes more, because they get hurt. Mm-hmm. But you don't knowingly or willingly put them into dangerous situations.
No.
You know, I definitely will listen to that small, soft voice knocking on my dome going, I think you guys have had enough for today. Yep. You know, I'll definitely listen to that more. And cattails, you know, if the cattails are full of water and flooded, I'm probably not going to send Hondo into them. We can hunt the edges, but man, that's just a lot of plunging and up and down, and I can picture in my head how he cut himself up.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that was on me. I didn't handle him right in that scenario. But that's a big part of owning dogs, and you're in for that again. You know, you're going to have a little buddy that you're working with, and she's going to be awesome, and you're going to shoot birds over her, and yeah, she's going to by the time you come out at Christmas, she's going to be like your little buddy, and it's going to be fun.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to having another dog, and I know, you know, they talk about German dogs and the Shorthairs. Both my females, and when I got Hannah, she'd been abused terribly, and it took me weeks to win that dog over. I literally sat on the porch the day I brought her home with food in my hand and made her, I knew she hadn't eaten since the morning before, and made her come to me, and took me about 20 minutes, and she finally came and grabbed a piece and took off. And about an hour later, I could touch her, and by the end, she was my dog.
Yeah. Yeah, and you won't have to deal with that with Maddie.
No.
You're getting a blank slate with Maddie for sure, and she's going to be a ton of fun. So, well, anyway, guys, that wraps up what I wanted to talk about. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, it was fun. I look back on it, and being a school administrator and a father of two sons who, according to my wife, I did some goofy stuff with, challenged them more maybe than mother was comfortable with. But I was, you talk about being hard. I was hard. And I have two responsible, grown sons who are raising 5 beautiful grandchildren.
I was going to say.
4 granddaughters and a grandson.
Yeah, Grace and I had one more shot, and pulled it out with Jed. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
So, yeah, I mean, you don't overdo it, but there has to be a line. And whether it's a kid or a dog. And I'm looking forward to the challenge. I know it's going to be fun, and it's going to fill a hole in my life right now.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the biggest thing that I wanted for you was to get some purpose. You know, get a dog, have something to do every day when you get up instead of making a pot of coffee and sitting and, you know, doom scrolling through social media or watching the news or just staring out the window. Get up, go for a walk. You got somebody that's going to need a walk, and you need a walk worse than the dog does, actually.
Right now I do.
Anyway, it'll be great. I'm excited for you. It's going to be an awesome adventure. So, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode of the Wingmen podcast. Make sure that you're leaving us reviews on these podcasts, sharing them with your buddies. Make sure you're rating us as well. All of that stuff helps us drive this algorithm and push more great content out to you. And if there's something you want us to talk about or a guest you'd like us to have on, by all means, let us know. And until next time, thanks, Dad.
Yep.
We'll see you guys in the field.